to the cloud. So, welcome.
Thank
Most important question. What's in your cup this morning? Or your coffee or tea?
you. Coffee is a oat milk cappuccino,
Oh,
double shot, I believe. So yeah, this will keep me going till at least midday.
nice. Strong option. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so good. All right.
Mm.
Well, can you just give me a bit of a run through about what you do these days?
Yeah, no worries. So these days, I'm currently just wearing one hat, which is really nice in the S&C industry. Um,
Woo.
so I'm a strength and conditioning coach at Somerset College on the Gold Coast. And pretty much what that entails is we look after all our student athletes and we look after a lot of our specific sport programs that we offer here. So we implement, strength and conditioning into their training regimes. But we also look after, I guess, students that just want to do gym work, for a lack of a better term, and just understand how to actually train properly and get some benefit out of it for whatever their goals are. So we call that like non-sport specific training, but they could still be playing sports and there's going to be a benefit anyway. So yeah, that's my current title, strength and conditioning coach.
Amazing. Fun. With your, I guess, background, what was kind of your journey through studying and accreditations and kind of what's led to this point?
Yeah. Okay. All right. There's definitely a journey here. So
Take
this
us
one
on
might
that.
take this one might take a while, but look, basically, it all started. It stemmed from just me being a sporting kind of student myself, like from high school, going into university. Always played sport. Always interested in training to be better at sport. So that was like the desire to even just experiment with this industry. Um, I guess the pathway itself was focusing heavily on it at school. So, putting a lot of focus into PDHPE and other sport related subjects. From there, enrolling into an exercise science degree, which was at Griffith, sorry, Southern Cross, but it was at Griffith at that stage. and and yeah, within exercise science, there's a lot that you're learning that you're not 100% sure on if it's going to be something you'll do on a day-to-day basis in a job. Like I think a lot of students figure that out pretty quick. So I kind of tried to create my own little pathway in the platform, the exercise science platform that they offered, and I just started focusing more on sport related subjects. One of them just being like a Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. So I did that while I was at university. And that was probably the one subject that was really beneficial for me trying to pursue this industry because I just picked up a part time job at a gym while I had those certificates. So I was still studying and just picked up part time work, basically being a receptionist and also teaching a few classes here and there. So from that, that's when I started to dive a little bit more into strength and conditioning itself. So I'd start to train actual athletes, and just a lot of younger, no names by any means, just younger athletes that just wanted to get better at their sports, or their parents wanted to make sure that they were safe, not getting injured when they were playing sports. And that was just done all in like a personal training format. So basically, I was a personal trainer once I finished an exercise science degree. But it was great because it just gave me a bit of a niche compared to maybe what other personal trainers were doing at the time as well. From there, um, I was still playing a bit of sport, like contact sport. Rugby was my main thing. So I started to use it within my own club, started to help different players individually, and then just got pretty lucky. Lucky is literally the best word for it. That I got offered an opportunity just to internship down at a league team. And that was Tweed Seagulls, which is in like the Queensland competition for rugby league. So just started down there, started to understand a little bit more about what their needs were, and then it just kind of kept growing. um, so yeah, spent a year with a certain team, which were made up of like 18 to 20-year-old boys. And I was literally, yeah, just interning. So I was just assisting the main strength and conditioning coach. But basically, halfway through, it got to a point where they couldn't do it anymore. So it just fell into my lap. So I just kind of took over from that point there and carried on with that particular team. And yeah, probably found a bit of love in that work, like actually owning a program for a team. That gave me another opportunity where I was able to go overseas and work with a specific team as well. So I went over to the UK and worked with a rugby league team there, and that honestly only came about because of the connections I made with the club I was with at the time. And whilst I was over there doing work, I noticed, especially in the UK, a lot of students who were younger than me had basically finished an exercise science degree or the equivalent of what they call it there, and had gone straight into like a master's of strength and conditioning. So I just asked a few questions and found out that it's a pretty regular program in the UK, but not wanting to front up fees, being an international student, I looked at it within Australia, and that's when I saw there's a Masters of Strength and Conditioning program offered through Edith Cowan University. So I basically enrolled into that a year into my time overseas, moved back because of COVID, and then just jumped into that online. So did a Masters of Strength and Conditioning over a year and a half. Actually, it went for 2 years in the end just because of the time delay with COVID, but 2 years it took to complete that, mostly online. And went straight back into working as a personal trainer and with the same league team that I actually left at the start. So, yeah, do you want me to keep carrying on? There's probably another 2 to 3 years after this.
We might pause and then come back to
Yeah,
that. Um,
let's do it.
it's, I guess, nice hearing there's been that time of actually go out, get involved in the industry, make sure you like it, and then kind of look at continuing those qualifications. Um, there was, as you know, I was at Griffith as well, and it was such a nice little value add having that Cert 3, Cert 4 as elective options. But I know a lot of unis, SU is one example, but a few others have also gone through basically an RPL process with AusActive, and students can now get that accreditation after they've been through a certain part of our program. So it was, we kind of emphasize, hey, do it. Most of the time you can get it at the end of your second year. And like you said, that value of being able to go and then work in the industry and build those contacts, and do I like this? Which way do I want to go? Set myself up in those skills. But did you really find, like, looking back, glad you waited before doing that Masters of S&C versus, jumping in the year or two after you graduated kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I am glad that it took me a little bit longer to like find out that it was actually a thing. Like obviously new strength and conditioning was a pretty established industry at that point, but I wasn't completely aware that there was master's programs you could do within Australia. So I definitely learned a lot between bachelor degree and master's degree, where I was just on a gym floor or working with a team or working with individuals, where I would have to do a lot of self education and a lot of trial and error. So yeah, no, don't regret the fact that I had that time gap, because it just gave me an opportunity to explore the space in my own way.
Nice.
Hmm.
With you said you kind of choose your own adventure when you're at uni. Are there any, units or courses looking back you see the relevance of a lot more now? Like, you kind of, previous you, like, maybe I should have, you know, recognized the importance of this.
Yeah,
Biomechanics always
yeah,
comes to mind, for example.
yeah. Biomechanics is definitely a big one, and I didn't have a massive science background like from school. I didn't really choose to do many sciences. So when I was doing biomechanics, biochemistry, even nutrition and dietetics, where you start to learn about food breakdown and Krebs cycle and everything like that. Um, yeah, definitely walked away first year and gone, why have I learned all this? Like, what was the point of me learning all that? But once you
You
get
were in a
in a
science heavy first year crew too.
yeah, massive, massively. But I reckon understanding that stuff and then being in, say, like a team environment where you might actually be
Mm,
working with a nutritionist, you might be working with a physiotherapist, and they're a bit more targeted, physio to like musculoskeletal anatomy, and the nutrition is obviously targeted towards the nutrition subjects. Like you've got that bit of common language you can have conversations with them about. So it did all make sense. It definitely did. So yeah, I
amazing.
guess to answer your question, sorry, biomechanics, anatomy and physiology, the multiple units that were done, and then nutrition related subjects as well.
I teach that one, so good answer.
Perfect. This wasn't planned, I swear.
Exactly. He doesn't know what I do these days. It's everywhere. Fantastic. With obviously we spend, a lot of time in the classroom and stuff, but how valuable did you find, you know, growing those industry networks and contacts with kind of, I guess, progressing to where you are now?
Yeah, huge. The saying that sticks with me now is like your network is your net worth. So
Oh, that's
who yeah. Who you know and not just know as in like you've heard the name and you've said hello to them and you've worked alongside them a little bit. It's like who you actually know that trust you, you trust them, you're willing to have like open discussions about things with, rather than just always accept sometimes the answers. I think
good.
they're the people in your network that are so valuable. When it comes to growing in your network, which might be different jobs, or it might even just be like understanding something you didn't quite understand before. So it's massive. So you've definitely got to try and get genuine connections with as many people as you can in the industry, because you just don't know when you're going to end up face to face with that person again. It's a bit of a
Mm.
funny cycle how it works.
Very. And I think that's such an important point too, is that genuine connection. You don't just randomly ping them on LinkedIn with no, note or anything to go
Yeah,
along. But especially if, you are a student, you are starting out to, hey, I'm, studying this. I've reached out to you because of this. Or did you find, or do you now, going to conferences, going to some of those seminars and professional events helpful in that space?
yeah, definitely. Like I'm pretty fortunate that in the strength and conditioning circle, we have a lot of events coming up through ASCA. So they might be the large conference or they might be the special interest groups, which could be plotted on the Gold Coast or Brisbane.
Mm,
Like I've been fortunate enough to present at one, and then I've been fortunate enough to organise one as well. So it's really important to go to those things because you might look at the topic and you might read the notes and go, oh, like I know so much about this. You might even tell yourself you know everything about it, which unfortunately you don't. None of us do. You got to admit that as well. But you'll go there and you'll just have a conversation with someone that you didn't
mm,
expect to have a conversation with, and it'll just make you think about things just that tiny bit differently. So, yeah, I think they're really valuable. But it's also not the only way to just network. I know some students might get stuck in that mindset that that is the only way. um, I don't think it is. I think if you can create time, which is hard to come by, time's hard to come by for everyone, but if you can create time just to ask to catch up with somebody that you have some special interest with, uh, and if it gets received well because you've tried to build a connection, that's super valuable as well. That doesn't cost anything. It might cost you a cup of coffee. That's it.
mm. It's such a good point. And we've just finally started, in third year, anyone studying XFIS has to go out and do a day at an XFIS practice of, see what this is like. But something I really encourage our first years of reach out and see if you can, come in for a session or a day and often, you know, is what you ended up doing at the footy club or the gym, did that exactly match the picture that you had in your head of what that role would look like?
No.
Good answer.
Yeah, definitely not.
Oh, yeah. And it's that kind of, and you probably found it, coming in interested in sports of what you might picture the industry being like in those roles and things, and then actually going out and getting them, like, oh, this is very different. So, the more exposure, can I come and, see it for a day? Or do you guys need to volunteer for anything? Or that kind of thing. So valuable. Um,
Massively.
Especially working in sport, did you find those extra qualifications helped you maybe transition to paid roles a lot quicker, still doing a lot of volunteer, or kind of really trying to maybe find ways to show your value in a sense?
Yeah, I think the roles and courses you obviously would be looking at doing when you're trying to pursue a career in sport, they're the backbone. So if you don't know that information, then when you turn up to a site, a school or club, or an individual athlete facility, whatever it might be, you don't have that backbone conversation you can start from.
Hmm.
I also then think it is still a lot down to, I guess, your opportunities, like your willingness to take up on opportunities as well. So just to say yes to a few things, like today, for example, just jumping on and chatting to you, and hopefully some people that watch this later on. But these are little opportunities you just got to try and say yes to. But yeah, it all starts with the backbone of certain courses.
Amazing. With, I guess, now being in a position where you're supervising students yourself, um, are there any, extra qualifications or anything you often encourage students to get or find, can really help bring that little bit of extra ability or versatility in? And I guess being in a school setting versus having come from the club might kind of shift that a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely. Look, the big one I would recommend that a lot of aspiring or first year students of exercise science should be looking at, if they want to be involved in a training facility, whatever that training facility is. I do think you need to get yourself a good Cert 3 and Cert 4. And then it gives you like the legal rights to actually
Mm.
go out there and start training some people. But it doesn't have to be the end project. Like if your goal is to train Gout, you want to make him the fastest man in the world, you're not going to get your Cert 3 and 4 and do that. But there's nothing stopping you from maybe training um, quite a young individual who just wants to get a little bit faster for their AFL. And it
Mm.
could just be doing something in the park with them. It could be, if they're at the right age, appropriately putting them for a little bit of strength training. Like, so doing that Cert 3 and 4 gives you the, like I said, the legal right to do it. So I would always recommend that as a really good starting point. And that teaches you things too. It teaches you a bit more about maybe your training regime, because I think a lot of our training regimes get ingrained in us by maybe what we did at school, or maybe what mum and dad showed us, or what our big brother showed us, whatever it was. Um, I know when I was doing Cert 3 and 4, I just got friendly with a guy from America, and I was like doing training sessions with him. I'm like, man, you do things so differently to what I've been used to, but it worked. It worked really, really well. So I definitely recommend those two as a good starting point.
Mm. Nice. And I think like a lot of the unis are starting to recognize the value of some of those as well. I know SU is not alone in having integrated a lot of these qualification opportunities in the program. So those of you listening, you may not need to separately go get a Cert 3, Cert 4. Chat with your program leads about it maybe being integrated. But even the ASCA level 1, our students can get that, I think, at the end of their second year. But unless you then go do something with it like you did, it's all well and good to have all these pieces of paper, but did you find actually having that experience to back it up is probably the tipping point for you?
Yeah,
versus,
yeah. And
collecting paper.
yeah, yeah. Like I can look at like I can look at my resume and see the dates that I've gained certain qualifications, and they're always fairly spaced out. Because
Mm,
I kind of want to try and get really good at using that knowledge for a period of time before then going to the next thing. So yeah, the second course that I'd definitely recommend if you are looking at strength and conditioning is you need your ASCA level one as a starter. But I personally still believe you should probably get a cert three and four and play around with that for a bit first.
mm.
See if you like it, to see if you learn things before you then go and do a strength and conditioning course because the information is very different. It's still pretty much working in the same environment, but the information is very different, and you'll probably learn like how to differentiate between those two courses and like how to use that information collectively as well.
It's such a good point. So yeah, I think there's sometimes, for various reasons, confusion around, what does what and who you're working with and where that direction is, and the ability to take S&C principles and apply to anyone really. But the Cert 3, Cert 4, or that kind of general fitness pathway gives you so much diversity. And you obviously were at a gym where, groups were a big thing, and to be able to, to control a crowd, if you do want to
Mm.
go into sport, the more you can do that, more diverse and eclectic populations, you then shifting to a sports club, you've got that experience rather than spending time in these one-on-one training environments, and then suddenly you've got 40 athletes all wanting to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Another thing, it's not necessarily a course that you might have to consider, but it's definitely a course that's worth looking at the people doing it, and that's anyone who's doing a teaching degree. Like I was going up with my exercise science qualifications while I had friends doing the teaching degree, like at the same time, and just learning how they prepare themselves for what they deliver in like classrooms.
Mm.
I took so many tips from that in regards to how I can deliver stuff in a strength and conditioning platform. So I'm not saying you have to go to a teaching degree. I'm not saying that. If you don't want to be a teacher, don't do a teaching degree.
Make
But
friends.
you can, yeah, make friends that are doing it. You'll certainly learn a lot around like behavior management, crowd management, and that's yeah, you'll find out pretty quick. That's a good chunk of S and C.
It's so true. Like, I think sometimes we forget those transferable skills. I find, especially students who are starting to shift into placement mode, there's often freakouts of, well, I don't know how to necessarily cleanly and quickly do an assessment, or what assessments to pick, or how to write that perfect program. But it's that emphasis of, well, can you talk to someone enough to
Mm,
figure out what you should focus on? And you've written them an hour program and they tell you they've got 10 minutes, or this is not aligned with those considerations. So I think those kind of transferable skills, but that knowledge too of even just organization, and able to recognize that if you're going out and you've got one-on-one sessions, for example, if you can't time keep, you suddenly set yourself an hour behind your schedule, and you've probably got clients canceling on you. So some of those
mm.
those skills as well. Um,
Massively.
with let's shift back to your journey. So post UK, doing the masters with ECU, is that when you did it? Was that still um, pretty much all online? And then did you guys have intensives at the time to fly over to?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's why it just got dragged out for an extra half year, just with the COVID border restrictions that WA was employing at the time. Um, yeah, good for them, not so great for us. But anyway, all things happen for reasons. So it was all online, but you do a lot of collaboration online, which was great because otherwise you felt like you were just literally reading slides, taking notes, getting ready for exams. You
Mm.
would do a lot of collaboration with students all across the country and the world. And then yeah, 2 weeks intensive over in Perth. It was just yeah, really good timing for me that that was actually at the very end of my master's degree. So basically, once those 2 weeks were done and everything was achieved, I had my master's degree paper. So usually you do a year and a year of study online. You then go over, do your 2 weeks placement, and then you do another half year back online. So I got it done a little bit differently. So that was really cool.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, like you mentioned too, you just almost kind of stumbled upon that program. Um, and that's something I think for those, listening online that are thinking, maybe I want to do further study. There's a lot of programs rolling out especially in kind of the sports and strength conditioning and sports analytics in those spaces too. And a lot of them are very much set up of we don't need you to move here. So definitely something to look into. But like you mentioned, go out and be in the industry a little bit first and then make sure that's kind of your pathway because, it is going back to school in the end, no matter
Yeah.
how flexible it is. So, so once you finish that, how'd you end up at a school?
Okay.
A free school,
So
sorry.
yeah, basically as soon as I had that master's of strength and conditioning, like I just told myself, all right, it's now time to look for something permanent, look for something fixed, because I was just still doing a lot of like personal training, so just organizing my own work structure while working with a team. So lo and behold, I got my paper, and within a week, there was about 5 jobs online for strength and conditioning roles at schools. So I applied for one particular role, got interviewed for that, got knocked back, which I look back now and go, so glad I got knocked back. And I'll elaborate why. But got an interview for another role, got accepted it. Essentially, was starting the strength and conditioning program for a school. So this was a school that had seen a lot of other schools were building gym facilities, integrating S&C into their student athletes regime and into the PDHPE department. So I had to be the first person with help from a lot of people at the school, and I definitely used my resources, used my network to understand how other schools were doing it and build a program. So that was really cool. Massive challenge, but really enjoyed it. Then I did leave that school. I was doing a little bit of moving around personally. So I was trying to keep myself as close to where I was living at the time. Uh, I then picked up the role as a maternity cover for the school I got knocked back at. So that was the really funny part. And I
There we
walked
go.
into this role, met the person that had established it, and they had done such a good job. Like it was such a well structured program. It made me reflect on the year and a half I did previously and go, oh, I wish I had integrated that. Um, so yeah, I'm glad I got knocked back because I don't think I would have been able to deliver what was delivered there without that knowledge first. And yeah, so did that for the maternity cover that was there, and then once again got pretty lucky, moved, and something popped up much closer to home, and that's where I am right now.
So good. It's funny how it works
Yeah,
sometimes.
it is. Yeah. So with schools though, I feel like um, when it's like teaching staff versus non-teaching staff, the hiring department of schools will always be looking for certain qualifications. Blue card's number one, right? You're not going to get a
Mm.
job anywhere at a school without a blue card, but the qualifications you have and the experience, and you probably know someone that works in the school, because if you work with clubs or individual athletes, a lot of the time they're coaching staff that are also teachers at schools, or perhaps it's the parents of students that you've trained externally. So yeah, having those qualifications and then that network of knowing people certainly helps trying to get your foot in the door at a school.
How do you find, I guess, the coming from, a community sporting club to school, still providing strength conditioning services, but I guess having a different number of parties that you're also trying to coordinate around? Um, how did you find, I guess, kind of having those collaboration and those management skills and kind of transitioning through a few different environments really helping you deal with that teamwork and that collaboration and what might have
Yeah.
challenges in that space.
Do you mean like collaboration with the staff you're working with, or collaboration with maybe the student athlete and all the different things going around for them?
I guess that kind of first one, more that kind of, buy-in and trying to get everyone on the same page. And
Yeah.
then we'll shift to the just trying to manage student athletes and the 5 million things they often seem to be involved in.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, to answer the question for both of those scenarios, it's definitely a challenge. Um, so I learned luckily early on that when I was with a rugby league team and I was working with under 18 athletes, they're obviously at school. They're at school somewhere that places a large emphasis on rugby league. So they were going to, yeah, schools like Palm Beach and Keebra State High. So you're trying to implement a training program, 3 times a week, but they've also been doing stuff 5 times a week at school. So yeah, pretty much got to find a way to get a phone number, get an email, connect with people that are, what's the right word for it? Like they're important parties in the whole system, and start some collaboration. So yeah, your perfect plan that looks like this might end up getting weathered down a little bit to look like that, because you got to have a bit of give and take with what you're doing. That was a great lesson because then when I kind of went on to the other side and I was working in the schools, and now I've got students that have club commitments for here or individual commitments for there, and you're trying to implement your aspect in the school frame. You got to do that collaboration. The beauty is you hopefully full time or part time, and you get a bit of time in your day to actually make that collaboration occur rather than chewing into your own time. So yeah, it's a challenge, but if you can get onto the collaboration side of things early, you certainly make it a lot easier. I think most people in our industry are always going to expect that there'll be conversations with different parties. So yeah, especially when it comes to student athletes, they've just got massive calendars these days, massive.
It's not. I
Yeah,
thought I was
yeah.
never that good. So, with with regards to kind of, you know, probably have a few colleagues that have gone that pro sport route. Was that ever an interest to you, or did you ever kind of dabble in that? What's kind of drawn you to this area of sport? Because often times, when I look at some of our first years that come in and are very keen on working in sport, it's Titans and Surfing Australia and some of these flashy places that when you actually get there might not be as glamorous as you paint it. Is
Yeah,
that ever a
yeah.
draw card for you?
Um, I actually have. I've never really set out to be working for like a set logo, if that makes sense. And that means both professional, semi-professional, school. Like I've never set out and gone, I want that logo on my chest.
Mm.
It's more around what that environment's offering, and if I think I can actually contribute to it. So I want to hopefully turn up, at 5 a.m. in the morning and be able to have some sort of positive impact because, my skill set is going to be very different to my colleagues' skill sets.
Mm.
And we've learnt that through lots of practice and repetition. So the answer to that question is no, like I haven't necessarily chased the flashy logo dream, like you've kind of mentioned.
The gear.
Um, yeah, yeah. I've definitely been involved in a lot of pathways to get there. Um, but no, it hasn't. But that's not to say that won't change. If I feel that, there's a certain flashy logo that I can benefit, then if there's an availability there, I might pursue it. But yeah, it's more about being in the environment I think I can contribute the most to. But I do have a bit of a passion for the youth athletic space at the moment. So hence the school roles.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. With I guess with that, any big changes that you've really seen in the industry as far as, thinking back to the days when I was semi-competitive, it was really just about physical training and playing the sport versus now you look at some of the other services that are provided and you've got these, long-term athlete development programs that term 10 years ago would have been of what? What are you long
Mm,
term, huh?
mm.
Where have you kind of seen, I guess, some of the trends shift, but also where do you see maybe those opportunities or those gaps of where we might be going as well? How do we future
I
proof?
reckon yeah, I reckon a massive change in the S&C, and I'd use sports science as well for that term. A massive change in that space has been the amount of structure implemented into training. And that
Mm,
can be the on field, if we're talking field sports, it can be the uh, gym, the strength side of things, can be the off feet conditioning side of things. It can be the nutrition, it can be the recovery. Like everything seems to be a whole lot more structured now than it was 5, 10 years ago. Um, which is great. It means that, a lot of different parties are collaborating well enough to like bring in a bit more control to certain sport. But the one thing I actually reckon is a slight issue is that potentially we're trying to control too much too soon for certain young athletes.
mm,
Um, I think it would be great to just see athletes experiment themselves still, not in the gym space, but experiment themselves with multiple sports and just how they can set that up. So I'll just use it like as an example. Like I can remember when I was young, wanting to play rugby, and I'd be watching like the older group play on a Friday night. They're 5 years plus older than me and my mates at that time. So instead, we'd just set up a stick at one side of the field, a stick at the other, same thing on the adjacent side, and we'd just play a random game of like 4v3 rugby. Like it was just the numbers we had. No one was reffing. There was no rules as such. We knew we had to tackle at certain heights, all that stuff. But there's definitely not as much of that going on,
mm.
and I think things can be a little bit too structured sometimes. So I don't know how to change that. I don't know if there's necessarily a quick fix for it, but it would be great just to see young athletes just experimenting with their sport or different sports. And there's kids out there that do it, but there's a lot of kids that don't. Unfortunately, structure's really taken control.
Beach volleyball, come along, anyone?
There you go. I'd love to see some of my rugby athletes be beach volleyball athletes, 2 years ago. That'd be great in the air.
Marston does really well for throwing their rugby team into the beach teams, and it's terrifying because once they get a hang of it, these kids can pummel the ball.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There'd be some big
So,
whacks.
yeah, but strong ankles. Um,
Yeah.
it's, it's such an interesting, I guess, kind of topic because there's more and more research growing in like exploring play. And,
Mm,
growing up, that was just what you did. But now it's starting to become there's gyms growing up that you come and you play and you play these little games that you would have played at school and it's obstacle courses and all these things that are now something we're kind of having to put back into into space and even looking at the effect of play on athlete and student durability and things that okay well this used to be a common thing but
mm,
kind of looking at those opportunities to expose and even watching kind of I remember going to a school awards dinner a few years back and these 14-year-olds were all contracted to these pro footy teams already
Yeah.
and two-thirds of them went up to get their award in some sort of cast. Like, oh, that's that's not good. So I think
Mm,
it's such a value, but I think it's a space and an opportunity in our industry to, like you said, coming back to the anatomy and physiology of bring it back to basics, and maybe we don't need to really be pedantic about those skills to start and make everything about the sport.
yeah, absolutely. Like one that I always get is I'll get like a lot of young athletes, like they could be as young as 12, and they'll come up to me and they'll talk to me about like what their watch is telling them in regards to their sleep
Gosh.
and whatever their recovery score is and whatever the fancy things are that these different watch brands create. And like, great tool, but is that, or should that be where your focus is right now? Um, should it be, let's just aim to get good sleep, eat good food that hopefully mum and dad put on your plate, and drink plenty of water, but just enjoy your sport, enjoy the training element of it. So yeah, I think sometimes the focus is a little bit in the wrong area.
Mm. With your role, and I guess kind of depending on where you were, what services are available, do you find conversations around sleep and nutrition are getting more common or more accepted, or, still a big opportunity?
I definitely think it's improved. Like, I know this will probably contradict what I've just said, like a young individual coming up to me and talking about that. Like, it is great that they know it and acknowledge it. But the thing that we got to remember with young individuals is that when you emphasize something, it can really stick and everything else can be ignored. So it's got to be a conversation, but so does everything else, and just needs to be done in small little doses. They're developing, they're not learning everything like that. They're going to take their time. But yeah, I reckon the like holistic view of being an overall athlete is definitely improving, and I think it starts with schools. Like, I think
Mm.
that's why so many schools have strength and conditioning facilities, and if they've got good coaches and a good team, that's when that information is being presented in the right way.
Was that an area, you find yourself having to kind of keep upskilling or have those, contacts? I know it's teaching nutrition. It's often quite a gray area around, scope of practice considerations and what we can and can't do, and, where to go for information. Um, do you kind of have a group of contacts you've built up, or over time have kind of gained that better understanding of where scope lies, or, having some of those conversations, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. I kind of look at it in two ways. Like, if a young individual comes to me and asks a question around nutrition, for example, perhaps the question is, I need to gain more muscle. What kind of protein do I need to eat? So they kind of have an understanding of what needs to occur. If their conversation is they just want to know, is chicken and steak a good option, I'll happily just provide them the quick little details. But if the question is a little bit more specific, where they're starting to talk about exactly how much, should it be cooked, uncooked, do I need to take supplements as well? That's when it's well and truly out of my scope, and yeah, it's referral to contacts. So being being able to provide little bits of information so they don't walk away feeling like they've got no answer, I think is important. But
Mm.
not jumping out of your lane. If it's reps and sets questions, I'm your guy. If it's around specific nutrition targets or whatnot, I'm going to refer.
Mm. Which I know can be hard sometimes because we want to help and we want to, you know, be able to be a support. And but
Exactly, exactly. But I would just think, like, if I'm asking myself those questions, how am I getting the information? If I can't
Mm,
physically find it, I'm going to have to refer myself anyway. So a kid is clearly going to need that referral. So yeah, it's not a bad. Sometimes people view it as a bit of a bad thing, like, oh, you're referring them. It's like, no, you're just actually trying to provide them information down the right channel.
nice. With with regards to, I guess, building those networks, um, sometimes you'll have that client or that individual or that athlete that needs someone other than you. Um, how have you gone about building, those networks? And we often have kind of our industry linked to, here's my fellow practitioners, but having to expand that sphere to other health professionals as well.
Yeah, a lot of it has probably come from my own experiences as well. Like,
Hmm.
what have I used? If I find I can relate to the way they present information, or that yeah they carry out their practice, uh, I think it'll go pretty well with the people I then need to refer them on to. So yeah, a lot of it comes from my own experience to start with. Um, Sometimes you're thrown in situations where, for example, you might be at a school and they might have a set contact. So you want everyone to be kind of going through the right channel. But then you'll also get those times where it's completely out of that scope. So you'll just hopefully be able to use your resources. Yeah. It's funny though, it kind of just organically happens a little bit sometimes.
Mm. I think every physio I refer to has been personally tested for some injury of mine.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Like, they're good.
Yeah, it's worked.
We'll change it up a little bit. Any
Yeah.
favorite lifts or exercises to teach? And then what's your one in two people struggle with this adventure?
Okay. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I like it when. So remember, I was saying if I can contribute to a place,
Mm.
that's what makes me put that shirt on. Yeah, with the student space, trying to teach any hinge patterns, so like Romanian deadlifts, for example, um, you will see some things that you just have no idea where they've gained that perception of doing the exercise from, even though you just showed them like 10 seconds ago. So I do enjoy teaching that exercise because personally, I've had hamstring issues in the past, and just knowing how to actually load up through hinging patterns and preventing issues has been great. So, wanting to implement hinging exercises and RDL potentially is awesome, but yeah, it comes with its challenges too. And I reckon it's almost like 70% of kids first time doing an RDL don't get it. 30% do. So trying to shift that 30 is
Mm.
it's rewarding. It is rewarding. And then when you get a kid that gets it and they start feeling things they should be feeling, and then they talk to you about how they're jumping a bit better or they're running a bit faster, you're like, all right, cool. Job
Nailed
done.
it.
Tick. Yeah.
Nice. Those of you
Yeah.
listening that want to work with adults, it's probably about 80% won't get it. So just it doesn't get better with age, just FYI.
No, no. They probably didn't get the education while they're young.
Yeah, they
Or
didn't have Brad.
yeah, no, it's a tough one.
Oh, fun. What's your personal favorite exercise or type of training?
Power training. I'm pretty old school. Like I just enjoy doing about 3 to 4 lifts a week and hitting full body in all of them, but I'll just have a little bit more focus on like my exercise selection for like a lower body predominant day, like an upper body push predominant day, upper body pull predominant day, and then I still enjoy, even though I'm not by any means going down any crazy athletic adventures, I still like it doing a lot of power training. So I like to do my Olympic lifts or derivatives. So yeah, but I'm into my running as well at the moment. So trying to find a nice balance of maintaining strength and trying to tick more Ks in my legs than they've ever seen.
Is that because your dog's older now?
Yeah, actually. Oh, actually, I think I'm at the point where I'm outrunning him, so I've done a good job. And that's a Kelpie, by the way, so
Just
he
gonna
can
say.
run.
There's one speed.
Yeah, fast.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
Um, any favorite sports to work with?
Yeah, look, I'll be biased. Obviously, I've spent a fair bit of time with rugby league. Um, yeah, so probably to wrap up on that whole timeline as well, like the club I left and then the club I went to the UK for and then came back to, I then stayed with that club for 7 seasons and just, I guess, climbed the
Wow, it's
rank.
been
And
that long.
yeah. So ended up in like a head of performance role, and looking after the main male team. So yeah, they're just it's a different style of group training with them. Um,
Mm.
Sometimes it can be, you know, on the record, it can be really punishing trying to get them all motivated if they're not. But once there's like one or two individuals motivated in a rugby league group, my God, you're going to have some pretty wild sessions. Like, yeah, what's the saying? Like, where energy flows, energy goes.
Mm.
When you get a couple of, and I've only done a lot of stuff with males. I'm not 100% sure what the female space is like, but when you get a lot of male rugby league players in a good energy state for training, you'll have some outstanding sessions.
How fun.
Yeah, so I do enjoy it, but I've been doing a little bit more this particular role with triathlon training, and yeah, I really like that because that's a super complex sport for a young
Yeah.
kid to understand how to run, swim, and ride, which are three. They're all endurance based most of the time, but it's very different how you move your body with those actual assets of the sport. Yeah, I'm learning a lot from that, and I've got a really
Gosh.
good coach that looks after them, so we're in constant communication.
Oh, amazing. I did one
Mm,
sprint triathlon and thought I was going to die.
yeah,
Just
it's
remember
maybe
getting
one
out
of
of the
those
swim and you're
sports
trying
that
to hold on your bike. You're like, I can't break. Let's for
I've
the
said to
best.
myself, if I can train them for a period of time that I start to see and hear some improvements, then I'll give the sport a crack myself.
Nice.
I've already made that side bet.
Good luck.
Yeah, I'll need it.
Maybe you could start a team though. That's the good thing with triathlons. It's like
Yeah,
this is my
yeah,
leg.
yeah. They've definitely like watered it down for people that just want to get in there and give it a go.
Yeah, just here for the medal.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. All right. I won't take up too much more time. One last question.
Hmm.
I guess having placement students yourself, any words of wisdom or, when you have that student that sticks out in a good way, kind of key things that sets them apart? How do you leave a good
Yeah.
impression?
Okay. All right. So if you're coming into like probably an established group, which most of the time interns are, you've got to make sure that you can communicate well with everyone there. It doesn't mean you have to go out and be everyone's best friend, but it's really good that you can communicate with everyone, and that includes all the staff, potentially support staff if you're in like a club environment, and then obviously the athletes themselves. So you've got to make yourself really vulnerable. Yeah, you got to make yourself really vulnerable because you'll walk in, and I've seen it many times, and I've done it myself. You'll walk in and you feel like you're the only person in that room that doesn't know what's going on. But if you make yourself vulnerable pretty quick and just try and figure things out a little bit, you'll find out there's a lot of people in that room that don't completely know what's going on. They know what they need to know, and then we know what we need to know. We're trying to kind of meet somewhere in the middle. So if you don't make
Mm.
yourself vulnerable, then you end up just feeling like you have no idea what's happening, and you feel quite clueless. And that's when you don't. It's probably when you don't enjoy it. You know, it's like you're sitting on the sideline, just going, "Oh, like
Mm.
what's happening?" But
How many more hours do I have to do?
exactly, yeah, stuff like that. Like I can explain to you exactly how I want that session to go, but if you don't make yourself vulnerable and jump in there and get a bit of an understanding through talking and coaching from like an S&C perspective, you'll feel like you just don't know what's happening. So be vulnerable. That's my biggest one for students. Be super vulnerable. Get out of your comfort zone.
Mm. And it's hard because I think there's, you know, obviously running placements here a lot of what if I don't know enough or what if I don't know the answer and trying to find ways to emphasize, look, you're going there to learn. And it's not
Correct.
they've just hired you and this is make or break. But
Yep.
it can be quite scary because there's often that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess up. Like, oh,
A hundred
this
percent.
is the time to do it. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no question's a silly question. It's I think I've seen really good students with placements before where they don't know what's going on and they'll mentally note it. Some people even, scribe it down or chuck it in their phone notes. And then at the very end, ask that particular person that probably should know, um, why did that occur? Why did we do this? And then because you've got yourself in there and you've kind of experienced a little bit, but you still don't know exactly what's going on. Once you get told the answer, you might just go, "Oh, that all makes sense."
hmm,
Yeah. And if not, well, do it again the next week. Do it again the next session. Just keep doing it. Don't stop.
yeah, I think that why often there's such a focus on the what do I do? But I think if you've got that why, the what kind of sorts itself out sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then future heads up for any more of your students that do come and work under me. I'll make sure I put you in some situations sometimes to force you to be a little bit vulnerable, because I guarantee you'll learn something from it. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I'm putting situations on people because it's honestly an opportunity to develop your skills, learn
Mm,
something new.
so true. Oh, I'm gonna come to pack with you guys.
Anytime, anytime. The coffee's
They
good.
should. And you got the one across by the pool now. It's like, ooh.
Yeah, yeah, we're pretty fortunate, very fortunate.
So amazing. All right. So your key takeaways, everyone. If you're interested in something, take someone a coffee, have a chat about it, and put yourself out there. So it's okay to ask questions. I've got a rule with my students that there's no dumb questions, there's just lazy ones. So so
Nice. I'm
yeah.
gonna steal that. I'm gonna steal
Stealing all of your quotes
that.
from this one. Lovely. Well,
Yeah.
that's it.
All good. All right.
10:59, 44 seconds. Look at us go.
Yeah, nice. Punctual.
Oh, well, have a lovely day.
Yeah,
And
thank you. And
happy
I hope
sort
your
of
students
holidays.
get something out of that.
Oh, see you soon, Brad.
All right. See you, Jenna. Bye.
Bye.